Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the DFO DFS show for Thursday, April the 15th. I apologize for my delay. I just finished cutting the grass, ran inside, realized that it was 5:12, and here we are. So thank you for being patient. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the DFO DFS show brought to you by our friends at Jock Market. If you're new to the show, everything you see today on the Google Sheets document can be available to you much earlier in the day if you join DFO Premium. Lots of good, juicy numbers. Basically, that's all this show is me breaking down the numbers and how things look. Who has the biggest advantage at 5v5? Who has the biggest advantage on the power play? Which goaltenders look the best? And if you have any questions as we go, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll get to any questions or comments you have as we go along here. So without any further ado, we've got a 9 game. Canada does have grass, believe it or not. We do. I wish we didn't. I hate cutting grass. That is one of the most, the worst tasks of all time. But yeah, 9-game slate tonight. Canada does have grass. The slate starts with Carolina and Nashville. Peter Mrazek was in the starter's crease this morning for the Hurricanes, so it looks like Mrazek will go for Carolina. UC Saros is expected to start for the Predators. The Penguins host the Philadelphia Flyers. It'll be Tristan Jarry versus Carter Hart. The Rangers versus the Devils. Igor Shesterkin versus Mackenzie Blackwood. Tampa Bay hosts the Panthers. Andrei Vasilevsky confirmed for the Lightning. Chris Driedger confirmed for the Panthers. The Bruins will get Tuukka Rask back between the pipes tonight after missing several games with an upper body injury. And the Islanders, they've been kind of rotating, so it could be it would be Varlamov's turn in the rotation. Sorokin has been playing better, though, so maybe they start to go away from that rotation a little bit, but I would expect to see Varlamov tonight, but again, that won't be confirmed until warmups at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. The Washington Capitals host the Buffalo Sabres. Vitek Vanacek will start for the Capitals. Ilya Samsonov is day-to-day. I believe it's an upper body injury, if I remember correctly. Dustin Tokarski confirmed for the Buffalo Sabres. That is because Linus Ullmark was hurt very early in their most recent game, and he is unavailable tonight. So Dustin Tokarski back between the pipes for the Buffalo Sabres. The Toronto Maple Leafs, who will be without Austin Matthews, some of the big news from today's slate, they will go with Jack Campbell, Connor Hellebuyck for the Jets on the tail end of a back-to-back. Big game here for the Jets. They got to start winning games again soon. The Detroit Red Wings, Jonathan Bernier, unconfirmed, but most likely going to see him. The Chicago Blackhawks will go with Kevin Lankinen. Then in the nightcap, which isn't all that late, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, we've got the Dallas Stars hosting the Columbus Blue Jackets. Jake Ottinger for the Stars. The Columbus Blue Jackets will counter with Elvis Merzlikins. Hinch drinking game. Yes, it is Hinch drinking game day. According to the Dallas Stars, they have several game time decisions. So, and yeah, that's the one thing I was going to say. It's been a little bit of a miserable last couple of days here. I mean, again, last night we hit some of the value spots. Vegas 3 was terrific for us. Got off to a great start. Most of their spots, though, not all that great. So I think personally that it's because I was drinking water for the last 2 shows. So we are back on the beer today. Hopefully that brings us some good things. So let's get into it. 9-game slate, very busy. Let's see what we've got here, starting with Carolina and the Predators. So in this game, Carolina won. Actually, Carolina is going to shuffle their lines up a little bit. It's not major, but it does kind of change things if you want to full stack them. So Jesper Fast, Svechnikov, Aho remains top line, but Niederreiter drops down to the stall line. Jordan Martinook up to the Vincent Trocheck line. So shitty lineup change really from a DFS perspective makes stacking a lot less exciting. But all 3 lines become pretty good, dropping Niederreiter down. For the Predators, very same lineup as they iced last game. So in this game, it looks like the top 2 lines are the best lines to target, but it does look like this game is going to provide plenty of action for DFS players. Carolina 1, 2, and 3 all grade out above average. So we will take a look at the matchups here. A bit of a easy game to break down. It's going to be a lot of the Aho line versus the second line of the Predators. The Trocheck line will see a lot of the third line of the Predators, and then basically a hard match. The Jordan Staal line will go head-to-head with the Ryan Johansson line the majority of the night. So pretty easy for us to break down. We'll start with the Aho line. So as I mentioned, they're going to be going about 48% against the second line of the Predators. So Aho line, super good. No surprise there. 32 scoring chances, 4 per 60. 17 high danger, really, really good numbers. The best numbers for the entire Hurricanes. But as you can see, the Hurricanes are very, very good at 5v5. But the Aho line, when he's with Svechnikov, has been playing. The results haven't exactly been there, but the underlying numbers are terrific. And given the skill set of both of those players, you'd imagine that they are, getting close to a breakthrough here. And they have the best matchup by far from the Predator against the Predators' second line. By far their worst line defensively, giving up 2.92 expected goals against, 27 scoring chances, almost 12 high danger, 45.3 Corsi for percentage. That is not a good percentage when you're going up against primarily up against an Aho line that clicks at 61, almost 62% Corsi for. So it should be a dominant game from Aho and Svechnikov, you would imagine. It looks like Carolina 2 and Carolina 3 also could have success, but just given their offensive rates, but they draw much tougher matchups. As I mentioned, you're going to be seeing a lot of Carolina 2 going up against Carolina 3 most of the night. And if we look at it, Nashville 3 is the second best defensive line on the entire slate. So not a great matchup there, and they become obviously less appealing with Niederreiter dropping down to the second line. Then the Stahl line, obviously with Niederreiter, they become a little bit better offensively, but they're going to be going head-to-head with Ryan Johansson, which is a pretty good defensive line. They've had a pretty nice run of offense as well, so it could be a little bit more of a tougher matchup for them. Probably saw each other off a little bit. And yeah, it's just, to me, it's very clear that Carolina 1 is the real target in this game. I mean, by far the best matchup. They already have the best offensive numbers on the Hurricane side of things. So it seems like a no-brainer to go with Carolina 1. I'm not a big fan of playing Jesper Fast. If you want a full stack, totally fine. If we want to take a look at their price, Svechnikov just $5,900, $6,800 for Sebastian Aho, so they're getting up there. But it looks like a really nice matchup for them on a 9-game slate. If you want to play Jesper Fast, $5,100. I don't really have a whole lot of interest in anybody else in this game. I don't think, the top line, the Predators' top line does look solid. I mean, 2.9 expected goals for, 30.52 scoring chances for, almost 12 high danger. So they look really good. The matchup with the Jordan Stahl line is not terrible. It's not great, though. With Niederreiter there, they're basically average defensively. So the Predators' top line looks like a decent contrarian option. The Predators, they've been playing extremely well as of late. Even though their lineup is very banged up, they've been playing extremely well. When you move, you got no Forsberg, Baracco Grimaldi's moved up there, and he's played pretty well. You've got no, what's his name? Can't remember his name right now. Drawing a blank. No Eeli Tolvanen. So Baracco Grimaldi's moved up there. He's just 2,700. He's a guy that has had some success this year. He's not the most reliable player, but at 2,700, he looks like a solid value option. Ryan Johansson is always a tough sell on DFS, just doesn't shoot enough. His floor is terrible. So at 3,300, though, he's kind of just worth the gamble if you want to full stack and make a bit of a contrarian lineup. And then Victor Arvidsson's obviously the guy that you really got to like from that line, but he's up at 5,500. So a little bit more expensive. He might be a decent cash game option, but to me, they're probably just more of a contrarian stack. Nothing that they're not alarmingly great, but they look okay tonight. Leave Fast off just mini stack. Yeah, I prefer that. Fast doesn't bring a whole lot in terms of offense. He obviously can pick up points. So playing him can increase your upside if that line goes off. But I mean, more times than not, he's going to end up with 2.8 points or whatever, one shot, one block. But obviously, he can put up points on that line. So. Just kind of comes down to your lineup build. But all right, second game, we got the Flyers and the Penguins. Pittsburgh 1 grades out, I believe, as the best line on the entire slate tonight. Guentzel, Crosby, Brian Rust, complete stack is 22,100. Obviously, Carter Hart has had his fair share of struggles this year. There's no real masking how bad he's been. He's played a little bit better as of late, but still overall, I mean, 872 save percentage on the season is just dreadful. So, Jeff Carter makes his Penguins debut. He is going to center the second line with Jared McCann and Jason Zucker on his wings. So that's, interesting development. Carter was actually becoming a pretty reliable kind of mid-priced option in LA. His shot volume has been really reliable. Whether that carries over in his first game to Pittsburgh, kind of remains to be seen, but we'll take a little bit of a deeper look at Pittsburgh too here in a second. But this is how their lineup shakes out with Carter in the mix. He will be on the second power play unit, no change to the top unit. So it doesn't, change anything too much other than basically just moving Evan Rodriguez down a slot. In terms of the matchups for this game, Pittsburgh one's basically just going to play about against everybody except for that second line. By the looks of things, they're going to avoid the Claude Giroux line a little bit and then allow their depth to play against the Claude Giroux line a little bit more. That's kind of the only thing to look at in this game. Other than that, no real hard matchups. I mean, Pittsburgh 2 is going to kind of just play against everybody. Pittsburgh 3 is going to basically play against everybody except for the fourth line. So no, not the easiest game to break down from a matchup perspective, but, not the greatest matchups overall across the board for Pittsburgh 1 if they're avoiding the Flyers' second line. Philly 1 slightly above average defensively, Philly 3 slightly above average, Philly 4 slightly below average. So, not the greatest matchups on paper, but at the end of the day, Pittsburgh 1's been really consistent, really successful this season. Their usage is among the best in this entire slate, if not the best. 32% of their team's 5v5 ice time. So they should have plenty of ice time tonight. They should have, obviously plenty of chances at 5v5, and you really don't need that many chances when you're playing against Carter Hart. So Philadelphia always looks pretty decent defensively, but I think we have to factor in the fact that Carter Hart is in the net. He's just not that good of a goalie this year. On the Philadelphia side of things, none of their lines even averaging over two expected goals for per 60 is alarming. They're not generating virtually any high danger chances on any one of these lines, just shooting from the outside for the most part. So that's alarming against a Penguins team that's pretty solid defensively. Tristan Jarry's playing pretty well. So I don't really have a whole lot of interest in the Flyers tonight. You got the Couturier line basically going head-to-head against Crosby and Pittsburgh 3, which is very good defensively. So that doesn't look great. The Claude Giroux line is kind of the most appealing if you had to play it. But to be completely honest with you, the Flyers just got shelled again, and I'm not 100% sure on their line combinations tonight. I'm kind of just rolling with what they had last game with a little bit of a tweak with Wade Allison making his NHL debut. So these could be completely altered. I mean, Kevin Hayes moved up and played with the Giroux majority of last game, so it's really difficult to even pinpoint and talk about the Flyers until we really have a hard idea of what their line combinations are going to be. We won't know that until warm-up. So, but even if they make wholesale changes, it doesn't really look like that. Like they're all that appealing this evening. In terms of the power play, which I kind of forgot about the first game, the Carolina Hurricanes do have a positive power play advantage. I believe it is the fourth biggest on the slate, fourth largest, I should say. The power play is pretty solid for the Hurricanes. The Predators' penalty kills rate about average on tonight's slate. So, but the Predators taking their fair share of penalties. The Hurricanes look solid on the power play, which again just kind of furthers our love for Aho and Svechnikov. Then the Penguins also have a pretty modest power play advantage as well tonight. Their power play just slightly worse than the Hurricanes, but the Flyers' penalty kill is not very good. It's among the worst on tonight's slate. So the Penguins look like they're in a really good spot. And obviously, if you're targeting Pittsburgh 1, then they fully correlate on the top power play unit as well. So there's a lot to like about them at 5v5 and on the power play tonight. So third game of the night, the Rangers and the Devils. I really liked New York 2 the other night, and they did okay. I think we had a goal from Panarin maybe. That was pretty much it. They look okay again tonight. New Jersey 1 grades out pretty well again. They didn't really do much for us the other night. But overall, they look solid. Hischier, there's no Jesper Bratt tonight. Miles Wood and Hischier, they grade out okay. And then New York 2 looks like the best line from the Rangers tonight. Sorry, it's a lot of talking. No hard matching in this game at all. The Rangers basically just free for all. Everybody against everybody. So very difficult to break this game down really from any standpoint. The way we can look at it is that, the Devils are pretty solid defensively outside of that Nico Hischier, Miles Wood line. It seems whatever line Miles Wood is on is just an absolute tire fire defensively. When he's with Michael McLeod on the fourth line, they're terrible defensively. When he's with Pavel Zacha, they're terrible defensively. It's just a Miles Wood thing. So whoever he plays against the most tonight is who you're going to want to play, but we really have no concrete idea there. I mean, in terms of playing against New Jersey 2, basically everybody except for New York 1 is going to see over 23% of their ice time against them. So, no real hard matching. It's very difficult to break down. As I mentioned, New York 2 looks like the best. They're the really only line that is above average offensively for the Rangers right now. So, I'll keep going back to them if I want to play the Rangers. Yeah, it's tough to break this one down. I mean, the same thing goes for the Rangers, right? I mean, they're okay defensively. Nobody really stands out as terrible. Nobody really stands out as somebody that you need to avoid. And then New Jersey 1 and 2 both have pretty solid offensive numbers. So kind of if you want to go there, I think that that they're fairly decent in terms of as value options. Like Sharon Govich, his shot volume remains super consistent. Hughes, you kind of know what you're getting with Hughes. You can have a big game. His floor is relatively low, although he has been shooting a lot more lately. He's playing like up over 20 minutes a night, which is good. So if you want to go there, that's fine. The issue with playing New Jersey is that you're going head to head with Igor Shesterkin, who's been absolutely fantastic for the Rangers. So, yeah, it's just kind of a weird game. It was pretty low scoring the other night. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being that again. Backstrom hat trick because it's only fair, right? Yeah, I mean, we'll get to that game here in a second. But yeah, this game's just, I don't have a whole lot to say about it because there's nothing really stands out, right? I mean, it's when there's no matchups, it's like, what, I don't know. Play the best lines, which would be New York 2 and New Jersey 1 and New Jersey 2 both look solid. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got for that one. I guess I will take a look at power play because that's maybe one way we can target, and it is. The Rangers power play unit stands out as the second best option on the entire slate. Their power play is pretty good, not great, but good. And then the Devils' penalty kill is atrocious. So, and nobody draws more penalties than the Rangers, so maybe that is a way to target them. That's how they've had a lot of their success lately because they're not that great of a 5v5 team. The problem with their power play is it's so fragmented. That like you just kind of have to get lucky. So again, I always just kind of roll with New York 2 because Panarin and Strome seem to, especially Panarin, seems to be the focal point of that power play unit. Him and Zibanejad. So I just kind of go with New York 2 and hope they get lucky. The other thing I think is worth mentioning in this game, Vitaly Krasov moved up and played quite a bit with Zibanejad the other night. So they didn't run a morning skate. They didn't run lines this morning. So I don't know if he's going to start there. According to the projected lineups that the only thing we have to go off of basically is from their NHL.com reporters. They're projecting that it's going to be Chris Kreider. But if Krasov does move up there, he's trending in the right direction, looking better and better each game. The usage still isn't great, but at minimum price, if he takes line rushes on that top line in warmups, and of course I'll tweet those out at Daily Faceoff on Twitter, then he's definitely a really impressive value option tonight. Been surprised by the Rangers of late, really playing some good hockey. Yeah, they are. And what they're doing is they're not like free for all and like they used to, like, right? Like coming into the season, I'm like, man, that team's going to be good, but they're going to have to win games like 5-4. They're going to get tons of goals, and they've been pretty good defensively. And Shesterkin's been outstanding. So they have been playing good hockey, and that's why I don't really love the Devils tonight. But all right, the Lightning and the Panthers. This is a big game. The Panthers trying to show what they've got. The Lightning are shorthanded. Florida's a little bit shorthanded as well. Both teams completely revamping their line combinations too. So that's going to make things even more interesting tonight. We'll start with Tampa Bay. They're going to move Alex Barré-Boulet up to the top line with Andre Palat and Braden Point. On the second line, they're going to move Ross Colton up to play with Alex Killorn. The third line remains the same. And then the fourth line is Maroon, Johnson, and Joseph. After one game, David Savard is already off Victor Hedman's pairing. I think he was like a -3 or 4 like in the first period the other night. So not the best Lightning debut for David Savard. As for the Panthers, things are very different there as well. Nikita Gusev makes his Panthers debut. It is going to come alongside Alexander Barkov, Mason Marchment on the other side. Anthony Duclair will drop down, but he will at least only drop down to the second line with Wenberg and Huberdeau. Hornquist is the one that drops all the way to the fourth line. Expected to skate with Lucas Wallmark, who makes his season debut for the Panthers, and Noel Acciari. So very interesting line combinations from both sides. I don't really know what to make of them. Brandon Montour also makes his Panthers debut. Barré-Boulet obviously has had pretty decent AHL numbers. He's played very minimally at the NHL level. Him getting a run with the top line of the Lightning seems pretty interesting to me. Obviously minimum price, so I think he becomes a decent value option. Ross Colton just always seems to score for whatever reason. He's been red hot. He's got goals in 3 of his last 4 and 5 of his last 7. So him moving up is kind of interesting. Again, I don't think that's going to continue. I think the most interesting is Nikita Gusev. Obviously a guy with a ton of talent, pretty good numbers last year. Him playing with Barkov intrigues me a little bit. So you get Gusev at minimum price. He's probably the most intriguing of the three. Playing with Barkov, I think, is obviously nice. Marchment, he's been okay in that spot throughout the season. But Gusev is very interesting at minimum price. So according to the 5v5 score, Tampa Bay 1 is the better of the two options. Florida 1, second best. So we'll take a look here at the matchups. It's going to be Tampa 1 primarily against the Wenberg line. It's going to be Alex Killorn primarily against that Luosterainen line. And then Tampa Bay 3, which is the Yanni Gourde line, head-to-head with Florida 1. So that's kind of why Florida 1 doesn't grade out great. Obviously, their numbers don't look anywhere as close to as good without Carter Verhaeghe. Carter Verhaeghe's been unbelievable on that line, so their numbers come down considerably. No Huberdeau. I mean, he moved up there last game too. That helped out a lot. But with no Verhaeghe, their numbers don't look nearly as great. So, adding Gusev into the mix, could that change things? Maybe. But who knows what it's going to look like in the first game with Barkov. So overall, Florida doesn't look that great as a whole tonight. Most nights, their bottom 9, it doesn't look very good on paper. And they're just carried by that top line at 5v5. If that doesn't happen tonight, I don't really know. And then what works against them is the fact that they're going head-to-head with Tampa Bay 3, which is one of the best shutdown lines in the entire NHL. So not a great matchup overall for Florida 1 tonight. I will probably stay away, but I think Gusev is, at least worth a dart throw punt at minimum price. I mean, even if he plays 14 minutes with Barkov, it's good enough. Tampa Bay 1 looks solid. As I mentioned, they're going to be going head-to-head with the second line of the Panthers, which is okay defensively. I've mentioned they're just basically about as boring as they come. They play very low-event hockey, kind of suck the fun out of things. But, maybe Barré-Boulet is worth a look on that top line. I mean, he brings down the full stack price all the way down to $13,900. You get Braden Point under $6,000. You get Palat at $5,500. Barré-Boulet, 12 points in 10 AHL games this year, 56 points in 60 AHL games last year. In his 5th junior season, he had 116 points. So he's obviously a guy with decent offensive pedigree. And getting a chance with Point and Palat is interesting. So I think that, there is a case to be made there, but both these goaltenders are playing so well. Both offenses are banged up. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is a relatively low scoring game, but Boulet and Gusev look like super, interesting punt plays just because of their minimum price and on the top line with very talented players. But Barré-Boulet of the group looks like, Tampa Bay 1 has the best chance of success tonight in this game. In terms of the power play, both slightly, Tampa Bay slightly above average. Florida a little bit more above average, but both teams have pretty solid penalty kills. Both teams' power plays are pretty okay. Florida's is better, but Tampa Bay's penalty kills better, so kind of size each other off. All right, Boston and the Islanders. So we get to see a lot of the trade deadline pickups in action in this game. Boston 2 obviously had a pretty good first game with Taylor Hall. He didn't do much, but they did okay as a whole. Craig Smith had a goal and assist. Krejci had a goal. So Boston has been shipping goals lately. Surely there's lots of values to Islanders line stack at low cost. And Tuukka's back too. So yeah. We'll look into it here in a minute. So nothing really changes from either team's lines today. Travis Zajac is still up with Matt Barzal and Jordan Eberle. Palmieri's still down with Peugeot. Nothing really changes there. The Bruins look very similar. Only changes are going to come on their blue line. Kevin Miller's back out. That's the only thing that changes. I'm assuming his hand is just sore from punching faces so hard. But yeah, Taylor Hall back with Krejci and Smith tonight. Let's just take a look at the matchups in this game. So New York 1 and Boston 1 grade out the best. Boston 2 and Boston and New York 2 both grade out slightly above average. In this game, Not really a whole lot of hard matching going on either, so it is a little bit difficult to break down. Boston 3 is going to see quite a bit of the Barzal line, but so is Boston 2, so is Boston 1, so is Boston 4. So, again, another one of those games, not really that easy to break down from a matchup perspective, but Boston 1, their numbers obviously ridiculous. 64.6, Corsi 4, 58.9 expected goals for percentages, both insane. Obviously, though, the Islanders are very good defensively, so it is a bit tricky tonight in this game. It looks like it could be a relatively low-scoring game. I mean, Boston's top line super good defensively. Whoever they play a lot against tonight, they're going to surely shut down. Boston 2 looks pretty solid defensively as well. As Graham mentioned, Boston has been giving up a lot of goals lately. It's weird because they either have a great game or a terrible game. I think a lot of it had to do with their blue line being pretty banged up. Now they've got McAvoy back. Mike Riley comes in. I think he should stabilize the middle pairing a little bit. So to me, this looks like a lower scoring game. I don't love it. I just, the Islanders, right? I mean, if they get ahead, the game sucks. It's boring. They're going to suck the fun out of it. If they get behind, then things open up a little bit. So it's but it's very difficult to predict. Both top sixes are very solid offensively, but the matchups aren't going to be great. I mean, all 4 lines, basically all 8 lines in this game are pretty good defensively outside of Boston 3. I did mention that Boston 3 is expected to see a decent amount, about 50% of their ice time, which equates to 42% of Barzal's ice time coming against them. So Barzal's line, I guess, looks probably like the best option in terms of a matchup. They have kind of the only hardish matchup in this game, and it is against the worst defensive line in the entire game. So New York 1 is probably the best. That would be Barzal and Eberle, and Travis Zajac. If you want to full stack them, as I mentioned, they grade out the best. 14,500 full stack them. Zajac just 3,000. Barzal 6,500. Eberle just 5,000. So they look like the best option in this game. Overall, though, looks like kind of another one of those 3-2 hockey games. Taylor Hall up to 5,100 already. Krejci 4,300. Craig Smith 4,100. If you wanted to play the Bruins, I would probably play Boston 2 just because of the value. I think it's just a little bit too rich to pay 24,800 to full stack Boston 1 in a game that is going to be tough for them, right? I mean, New York plays everybody tough. So if you wanted to play Boston, I would probably just play the second line just because the price you have to pay. You're not basing your entire lineup around Boston 1, who could be in for a relatively tough game. Boston's power play about as above average as you could look, just barely above average, I should say. Their power play is slightly below average, even though the Islanders penalty kill slightly below average. Just doesn't look like a great game from the power play perspective either. So just a pretty boring game overall. Washington and Buffalo, Vitek Vanacek, Dustin Tokarski. Washington's power play looks okay. Their power play is solid. The Sabres penalty kill is not good. So from a power play point of view, Washington looks solid. Washington 1 grades out the best. Washington 2, number 2. All the other lines grade out below average in this game. Washington is slowly starting to get things going a little bit at 5v5. Still not great. Washington 2, 43% of their ice time tonight is going to come against the second line, or the top line. That is the Reinhart, Skinner, Olofsson line. And then, as customary on home ice, the Ovechkin line will basically see the bottom 6 of the Sabres. So how does that look in terms of the matchups? Very, very good for Washington 1. Again, their offensive numbers aren't great. They're starting to come along, but still not very good. Slightly below average offensively, 23 scoring chances, 4/60, 11 high danger. Okay numbers. Again, very mediocre, but going up primarily against the third and fourth line of the Sabres is juicy. The fourth line is the worst defensive line in the entire slate. With Tobias Rieder back in on the line with Cody Eakin, they're horrendous. They have been all season. The third line's not very good either. So it looks like a really good matchup for Washington 1. Problem is that they're not very good offensively, but even a line that's not that great offensively can have success against the bottom 6 of the Sabres. So you got to like what you get out of Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, and Wilson. Obviously Kuznetsov hasn't been great this year. Wilson is on and off. So if you wanted to just play Ovechkin, totally fine. But he should be one of the more popular options on the slate, and for good reason. Then you factor in the fact that Dustin Tokarski's in net. It should be all systems go for them. A little bit more difficult for Washington won, as I mentioned, though. They're going to see 43% of the ice time against the top line, but they're still going to see a healthy amount of the fourth line as well. So they're going to crush that fourth line when they're out there against them. And then the top line's not very good offensive or defensively either. So looks really, really good. Obviously, Anthony Mantha had a pretty nice debut for the Capitals. Nick Backstrom's obviously outstanding. TJ Oshie, pretty good as well. So they look good as well. I just want to pull up their power play units because I can't remember them off by heart. But Mantha 5,300, Backstrom 6,000, Oshie 5,800. They're relatively expensive. Ovechkin very expensive at 9,200. So like I probably, as a whole, like from a stacking point of view, I actually prefer Washington 2 probably. But Ovechkin has the highest ceiling in the entire game. So it's just kind of a matter of preference. If you want to maybe play both of them in a way, maybe a power play stack, get Backstrom, Oshie, and Ovechkin in there, then that's kind of an interesting way to do things because this game is going to be popular, or the Capitals are going to be popular. But Oshie, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Karlsson, and Ovechkin on the top power play unit. So if you want to build it on the power play and just kind of get exposure to both lines, then I think that's an interesting way of doing things. Congrats on 1,000 games, Backy. Yeah, I mean, if you want to go down the narratives, then maybe he has a huge game tonight. Backy and Oshie from Caps is what I think I'll roll with. Yeah, and I think that's pretty interesting. Like I think both lines look fine. I just think that Backstrom, Mantha, Oshie line is just probably the slightly better line at 5v5. Now that they've got Mantha there, where Kuznetsov really hasn't done anything all season. But both lines look good. From the Sabres side of things, no real interest. Because the only line that's not good defensively for the Capitals is that top line, and they're only going to face the bottom 6 of the Sabres, who suck. So moving on. Toronto and Winnipeg. So this game is interesting, obviously, because Winnipeg's on a back-to-back, but Hellebuck starts, and then the fact that Austin Matthews is out. So what happens is John Tavares moves up. He'll play with Marner and Galchenyuk. Kerfoot moves up to play with Hyman and Mikheyev. Engvall with Simmons and Thornton. And then Adam Brooks enters the lineup to play with Spezza and Nick Robertson. For the power plays, Thornton, Hyman, Marner, Galchenyuk. No, that's wrong. This should be Tavares. Got to fix that. Tavares is on the top power play unit. Sorry. With Hyman, Marner, Galchenyuk, and Riley. Let me just change that on the site. Okay. Fixed. So yeah, that's what that's going to look like. So the fact that you've got Tavares, Marner, and Galchenyuk all playing together on the top line, all playing together on the power play, is definitely intriguing. So yeah, this game, Toronto 1 grades are the best. Winnipeg 1, Winnipeg 2 both look pretty solid as well. Depth pieces for the Maple Leafs, not so much. So for the matchups, Toronto 1 basically going to go head-to-head with the Scheifele and the Lowry lines. I don't think there should be a whole lot of interest in the rest of the Maple Leafs tonight. Kerfoot doesn't bring a whole lot offensively. And their depth is just, it's very difficult to pinpoint what's going to happen. So yeah, that top line looks really good. Obviously not as good of numbers without Matthews, but Tavares and Marner have had their fair share of success together. Galchenyuk's provided a nice spark to that top 6 as well. He had a lot of success with Tavares earlier. So, I was all over Toronto too when it was Galchenyuk, Tavares, Nylander. Marner's obviously an upgrade on Nylander, so I think that they're pretty interesting. The Scheifele line is, they're doing better defensively. They're doing well in the Corsi battle right now, the possession battle, but when they are in their own zone, they are giving up plenty of scoring chances. So there should be plenty of opportunities here for Toronto 1 tonight. Obviously, going up against the Lowry line is not a great matchup, but like I said, they're only going to be doing that for 28% of the time. So against the top 6 of the Jets, they should be better. The Jets are one of the worst defensive teams at 5v5 in the entire league on a back-to-back. It should be a pretty good matchup for Toronto. I would imagine that maybe they're a little bit less popular now that Matthews is out. Hopefully that's the case. I'm not 100% sure. Ownership is so difficult to project, but yeah, I like Toronto 1 tonight. The fact that they're on the top power play unit together, and then if we pull back the power play report, they have the best power play advantage on the entire slate. So that just kind of, even if they don't get their job done at 5v5, they're all together on the top power play unit. Should be all systems go for Toronto. They got really good power play in terms of the underlying numbers. Obviously, percentage-wise, lately it hasn't been great, but the Jets penalty kill is bad. So Toronto looks really, really good tonight. Which defenseman do you like, Ghost or Mike Riley? Mike Riley, for sure. And then, yeah, the Jets, the power play is pretty solid, but the Leafs got a pretty good penalty kill. But I think this is a decent matchup for the Jets as well. I mean, the top line obviously going head to head basically with Tavares' line. They'll see a little bit of the Kerfoot line. The second line, the Pierre-Luc Dubois line, going to go primarily against the third line of the Maple Leafs. The third line of the Maple Leafs has been pretty good, but it's not a terrible matchup. Obviously, the Tavares line gives up a fair bit, very high event game. So I think Winnipeg 1 and Winnipeg 2 are both in play. The Leafs obviously having a little bit more of a difficult time keeping the puck out of their net lately. Jack Campbell's looked a little bit more leaky recently. Obviously, I think he gave up, 5 against the Senators, and then gave up another couple the other night in his first loss of the season. So, he wasn't going to stay red hot forever. I think Winnipeg 1 and 2, I guess the only issue I would have with it is the fact that they're on a back-to-back on the road. So, I'm not in love with them tonight, but I think they're solid. Kyle Connor let me down yesterday. I think he bounces back. I would still play him. Overall, though, the price, what do you got? $7,300 for him. It's tough. It's tough to pay that on a back-to-back, but he is one of the most consistent options in the league. Dubois looks really, really appealing at 4,000. Ehlers is just amazing, but he's 6,700. So my favorite in this one is Toronto 1. Best matchup, best line. And not on the back-to-back. All right, the Red Wings and the Blackhawks. So we've got some new look lines for the Red Wings after a busy trade deadline there. It's still going to be Svechnikov, Larkin, Zadina on the top line. Verana will make his debut with Rasmussen and Val Filppula. Richard Panik makes his debut as well with Nemestikov and Sam Gagner. They still suck. Both on the just Verana on the second power play unit. So, and then the Blackhawks, unsure what they're doing. This is what they went to the middle of last game after breaking up DeBrincat, Dach, and Kane. They went back to it. So maybe that's what happens tonight. I'm not 100% sold, but based on last game, that should be what happens. And then very interesting. I don't know how long this lasts, if it even sticks at all. But in practice yesterday, top power play unit was 5 forwards. Dach, Strome, Kubalik, DeBrincat, and Kane. So that's interesting. I see that Boquist is still in the second power play unit. He's out. But I mean, that's super interesting, right? 5 forwards. I love it. And then the fact that you get Dach, DeBrincat, and Kane is very interesting. Drunk Tom Wilson says, "Get me off Chicago 1, LL." So here, I mean, I think I'll get you off Chicago 1 right here. I like Chicago 1 tonight. And I seemingly never get Chicago right, ever. Every time I play them, they don't score. Every time I don't play them, they score. So if I like them tonight, it means they're probably not going to score because I never get them right. They look good. If they play together, I mean, DeBrincat 7,400 is expensive, but Dach's just 3,800, Kane's 8,300. I mean, let's look at the matchups. Detroit 1 looks okay too. So Detroit 1, the Luke Glendening line is going to go primarily up against the Kane line. Sorry, wrong. The Detroit 1 is going to go primarily up against the bottom 6 of the Blackhawks. The Glendening line will go almost exclusively against the Patrick Kane line. So pretty easy game to break down from both top lines here. So let's start with Detroit 1. Very mediocre, slightly below average offensively, 47.8 Corsi forward, not great. So they're not that good. And then the fact that they're going to be basically going head-to-head with the bottom 6 of the Blackhawks isn't great. I mean, the fourth line is really good, or really solid for the Blackhawks. Their third line is whatever. It's just really tough to get too excited about the Red Wings. If you wanted to take a dart throw in Verana, because seemingly every guy that got traded at the deadline scoring in their debut, then maybe, what is he? 3,400, really, really cheap. Rasmussen has looked much better too. I mean, just from the eye test, obviously the numbers aren't great. He plays a pretty low event game, but he's looked much better for the Red Wings. So maybe you want a really, really cheap mini stack for Verana and Rasmussen and hope that he scores in his debut, then sure. In terms of his matchup, 37% against Kane, and then about 50% against the bottom 6. So, I mean, decent matchups, right? So, as a value option, I think that'd probably be where I'd go as opposed to the top line of the Red Wings. Okay. And then the Blackhawks. So they look solid, right? I mean, but they're not great. I've been talking about this all year. They're very mediocre. They just have really good shooters and they score more than they should. 29 scoring chances, 4/60 is good. They're going to go up basically against this Glendening line most of the night. The Glendening line is not very good. I mean, they're okay. They're not great. They're not they get treated like shutdown line like they're awesome, and they're not really. But 26 scoring chance against 10 high danger. So it's not like, I guess the one thing to say about Chicago is they're going to probably be popular. So if you don't want to play chalk Chicago, then fade them. I like them tonight, so they'll probably suck because that's just how it works. But I think, I don't know. Detroit's going for their first 3-game winning streak of the season, so I don't know what to make of that. I mean, our leading goal scorer is Adam Ermey. So we're obviously not a very good hockey team, and I think Chicago 1 looks pretty good tonight. If Thomas Greiss gets a start instead of Bernier, then I definitely like Chicago 1. But that probably means that they're going to suck tonight. So apologies in advance if you play Chicago 1, and I do too. All right, the nightcap is the Dallas Stars and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Just quickly going back here to the power play report. Chicago looks okay on the power play. The power play is not very good. The Red Wings penalty kill is not very good. The Red Wings do not look good at the power play because the power play sucks, even though the Blackhawks power play sucks. Just a whole lot of suck in that game. And then both Dallas and Columbus, I'll get ahead of myself here, don't look very good. But the one, Dallas's power play is meh, but Blue Jackets have a really good penalty kill. So that's kind of what happens there. All right, Ottinger and Merzlikins. So the matchups in this game, it's going to be Dallas 1 against the middle 6 of the Blue Jackets. And then Dallas 3, the Faxa line, going head-to-head with Columbus 1. So how do the numbers look in this game? Dallas 1 looks outstanding. The rest of this game looks very bleh. So yeah, here we go. Dallas 1 against the middle 6 of the Blue Jackets. What does that look like? Very good. The Blue Jackets are shit defensively. All 4 lines well below average. If we look here on the D score, here we go. Columbus 4 right there. Columbus 1 right there. They're all bad, right? I mean, they're all bad. So Dallas looks good. They're not very good defensively. Elvis Merzlikins is obviously pretty decent, but whatever. As for the Stars, they're bottom 9, all below average offensively, but the top line is great. Now, drink because Rupe Hintz is a game time decision. It's so scary to build lineups with this guy. He screwed so many people the other night. So, they look great. I want to play Rupe Hintz. I want to play Jason Robertson. I want to play Joe Pavelski. But if Rupe doesn't play, this line isn't as good without Rupe. And then if you build it, then they're not as good, but then you're stuck. Then you got to play like Jamie Benn at 5,000 instead of Rupe, and then they're just not as good. So it is scary. I think, though, the one thing that gets me excited about Dallas tonight is that so many people got burned by Rupe the other night that maybe he goes low owned tonight. The fact that Jason Robertson is at 6,200, that Joe Pavelski's at 7,000, that Toronto, that Boston are on the slate. Dallas should see no ownership at that price. So if you're playing GPP, I think they're interesting because I would imagine that they don't see a whole lot of ownership. Again, I could be wrong because I'm terrible at ownership, but that would be a pretty good guess in my opinion. So just that price, the fact that Rupe is a game time, the fact that he is always a game time and he just burned people, but they look great. So as I mentioned, they're going to see the middle 6 of the Blue Jackets who are shit defensively. The whole team's shit defensively. They look really good. As for the Blue Jackets, I just can't play them. Patrick Laine is starting to look better. But Dallas is really good defensively. So I just won't go there. I can't play the Blue Jackets in good faith. If, I should talk about it, though, in case you have any interest. So the top line, which is the Line A line, they're going head-to-head with the Faxa line, which is terrific defensively, so I can't get too into that. And then Cam Atkinson and Jack Roslovich, they're going to see kind of just everybody except for Dallas 1, which is literally as bad of a matchup as you can get. So it's just, not a whole lot to like from the Blue Jacket side of things tonight. All right, that is that. Let's go to the goalies. I know I'm running long here. Any sheep you men? Yeah, I will get to that in 1 second here. Okay, goalies first. Andrei Vasilevsky, number 1. Igor Shesterkin, number 2. Semyon Varlamov, number 3, which is very surprising. But Kevin Lankinen, Chris Driedger, Jake Ottinger, Tristan Jarry, Jack Campbell round out the top 8 on tonight's slate. So I think that Igor Shesterkin looks great. I mean, they're just playing very well. The Devils just don't present. They just don't have a very good offense. The next is got to be like you have to like Kevin Lankinen tonight. But again, I always get the Blackhawks wrong, so maybe I'm wrong again. But like 7,800 against the Red Wings, he should win, right? Like in terms of the odds, Vegas loves him. Should still see plenty of shots because they're shit defensively. I think Kevin Lankinen looks like the best goalie on the whole slate. At 7,800, it seems like a no-brainer. He might be the highest owned. Yeah, I don't really know where else to go. I think Tristan Jarry is pretty intriguing at 7,900, but I can't get past Lankinen at 7,800. So I think the other thing, too, for me is Andre Vasilevsky at just 8,000. The fact that you don't have Carter Verhaeghe in the lineup, you saw what it did to the numbers for the Panthers. They're just not anywhere as good, that top line, without Verhaeghe, Duclair, Barkov together. So maybe they're going to struggle tonight. Still no Ekblad, no Verhaeghe. So Vasilevsky, best goalie in the world at 8,000 seems appealing in a game that he should win, in a game that Panthers offense could struggle. The flip side of that is that the Lightning haven't been playing very well. So are they going to be able to score against Chris Driedger and get Vasilevsky the win? I don't know that either. So it's a bit of a weird game, but it's hard not to play Andre Vasilevsky when he's like the fifth most expensive goalie in the slate. He's the best goalie in the world. And it's not like the Panthers are firing on all cylinders with that lineup tonight. But so that's my spiel. I'll leave that up there if you want to study it and stare at it a little bit more while I talk about some defensemen. So cheap D-men tonight. It's tough. It's a weird one. I like Mike Riley. I mentioned him already, 3,600. It's hard not to like. I still like Brandon Montour. I know it's his debut, but he was red hot when he left the Sabres. Hopefully he plays a bunch. It's difficult. He looks like he's going to play in the top four, so I think he should see close to 20 minutes. So I like him making the move over. If you don't want to play him, I want to like Keith Yandle, but his minutes vary so much. It's difficult to get excited. And like I said, I don't love the Panthers tonight, but I do like Jamie Oleksiak a lot. He's always one of my favorite deep punts. He looks great at 3,300. As we move down here, I still think that David Savard is fine. He obviously put up a bagel in his first game, but I mean, he's still a shot blocking machine. The Panthers should still at least fire a lot of shots towards the net. So I still think that Savard at 3,000 looks reasonable. Not a whole lot down here today. How many minutes? Sammy Vatanen at 2,700. With the Stars now is appealing. Obviously, he's not going to play quite as many minutes with the Stars as he did with the Devils, but he looks interesting there. There is not a whole lot down here today, though, if I'm being completely frank with you. So you're going to have to dig. Colin Miller at minimum. I was just looking at that. Maybe he has been playing better. He does shoot a fair bit. He has been blocking more shots. I could get behind Colin Miller at minimum price. Yandle, I think, is pretty interesting. That's just too cheap. Like, I just don't know if they're going to score. But that is too cheap for Keith Yandle. He's still in the top power play unit. So 3,300 for Yandle seems appealing. You just got to hope that he doesn't play like 4 minutes tonight. I think he played 5 like 2 games ago, which is a joke. Eric Cernak, I think, is kind of interesting too at 3,200. He's going to be the guy with Victor Hedman tonight. He's going to get the David Savard treatment. He's always a guy that blocks a bunch of shots, plays a very rugged game. So I think he's kind of interesting. Gustav Forsling, always still a guy that I like, but just not as good as he was there in that middle stretch of the season. There's just not a whole lot down here tonight, other than the guys I've kind of already mentioned. I wish Noah Dobson would get back on the power play so we can start playing him again. Above that, though, like there are some decent guys above it. Like I still like Brett Pesce, 3,700. Still can get behind Rasmus Dahlin at 3,600. He's been playing better as well. Ristolainen, he's just always involved in blocking shots. He's only 3,900. Ryan Ellis at 4,000 is way too cheap. He was like barely on the power play the other night, though. Like I don't know what that's about. That should never happen. I don't know if he's still banged up or what, but he's Ryan Ellis and he's 4,000. I mentioned him the other day and he still got his 9.9 fantasy points and he didn't even put up a point. So Ryan Ellis at 4,000 is way too cheap. That's pretty much it. Yeah, and then whoever asked me about Riley and Gossesberry, you just get a nice salary savings. I was like a full $1,000 difference too. I like him a lot, and I don't really love the Flyers tonight. So, oh no, okay, it's Morgan Riley. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And then obviously at the top, you've got your usual suspects, but I don't need to tell you to play the top guys. I mean, they're obviously outstanding. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's DFO DFS show. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. Not 100% sold that I'm going to be doing a show tomorrow. I know I surprised a lot of you with a Friday show last week. I am going to try to do one, but I'm not 100% certain that will happen. I do have to do a podcast. Yeah, I do like Dumoulin. I do like Dumoulin because he plays a lot with Pittsburgh 1 at 5v5. So if you're playing Pittsburgh 1 and you can't afford the tank, plug in Dumoulin in there is solid. He always gets a couple shots. Very likely that he hits the shot block bonus. He's done it quite frequently this season. So I do like Dumoulin at 3,400 if you're playing Pittsburgh 1. As just like a one-off play, maybe not so much, but he pairs okay with Pittsburgh 1 if you can't afford the tank. But again, like I said, not 100% sold that I'm going to be doing the show tomorrow. I am going to try. I will let you know on Twitter. But here's what the tweet if you're doing a show on Friday. I will do. I will let you know for sure. This is what the 5v5 stacks look like tonight. Again, just if you're new to the show, this isn't like me ranking like these are my favorites, right? These are just the guys or the lines that have the biggest 5v5 advantages based on the matchups, based on their overall raw offensive numbers versus the raw defensive numbers of the opposition that they're going to be playing and who plays the most ice time and all that. It's all factored in to this one number. So, I go by the numbers. A lot of these guys are my favorite tonight. Like I love Dallas 1, I love Pittsburgh 1, I love Toronto 1, I love Carolina 1. So, yeah, I mean, those are probably my 4. It doesn't always work out that way, but they all look really, really good tonight. And yeah, leave it up here for 10 more seconds while I take a sip of beer. And please smash that like button before you leave. All right. See you guys tomorrow, perhaps. If I don't, I will see you Monday. Good luck tonight. Next time I see you, I hope you have more money in your bankroll than you have today. We need a win tonight, and we're going to get one. So good luck to everybody. I will let you know if I do a show tomorrow.